President and CEO of the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us for our candidate interviews for the candidates for mayor for the city of Tampa, as well as the other interviews we're doing for city council for Tampa. While the Chamber's focus is on policy, not politics, we think it's important for the business community and all of our members to be informed of who wants to serve in public office and be an informed voter when they go to the polls. We're excited today to have with us Jane Castor, who is running for mayor of the city of Tampa. Jane, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing this.
We're glad you're here. This is an important process, and it's good for the candidates to get to know the voters and the voters to get to know the candidates. So let's get started. Our first question. As we film this, we are just under 6 weeks away from Election Day. Now that we are in the final stretch, can you give us a brief, about 30 seconds update on your campaign and what your message you want the voters to hear as we go into the final stretch?
Mm-hmm. Well, just sort of an update on the campaign. You know, I think that Mayor Buckhorn has done an outstanding job of putting thoughtful development in motion. So I will continue along that path, but I will focus on the neighborhoods. And under the neighborhoods, looking at the issues that affect them the most: transportation, affordable housing, and workforce development. Those will be the areas that I will look at. I also, with the workforce development, I want Tampa to be seen as the innovation hub of the nation. You know, a smart city that's attracting businesses, developers, best and the brightest from around the nation, while we continue to grow our businesses here in Tampa. So those will be the focuses. Now, what makes me the best candidate? As you know, I was born and raised here in Tampa, went to University of Tampa and spent 31 years patrolling the streets of our neighborhood. I am the candidate that understands the issues. I'm an effective problem solver, and I am a proven leader. I'm the one that can successfully lead Tampa into the future.
Very good. You've hit on a couple of topics we're going to cover today. The first one, workforce housing. What zoning or policy changes would you support to address the growing workforce housing needs in Tampa?
Yes, well, a couple of things that we can look at for ordinances are the parking requirements and retail requirements for affordable housing developers. You know, those are things that cut into their profit margin and therefore drive the prices of that affordable home up. So those are some of the things that we would look at from the city's perspective. And then also looking at funding sources that we would be able to attract that would bridge that gap from the affordable housing price and what the buyers can actually afford. You know, the definition, 180,000 to 220,000 is not the average citizen's definition of an affordable home. And that's an issue that we are way behind on. We cannot have people moving out of the city because they're priced out. People should never have to leave a neighborhood that they want to live in because they're priced out.
Okay, good. Our next question is on the budget. The city's budget is one of the mayor's biggest responsibilities.
Yes.
Some state that the budget and the economy, experts believe that they anticipate a slowdown during the first term of whoever becomes our next mayor. How would you prioritize spending during the shutdown, and where should we anticipate cuts or tax increases under your leadership?
Okay, I'm, again, the candidate that has that real world view of the budget for the city of Tampa. You know, I lived it as a police officer, and I certainly lived it as the chief of police. So I went through those 8 years of cuts. And there are a lot of people that are saying there's fluff in the budget, and that is not true. It has been cut to the bone. Matter of fact, we have cut positions in some places that it has affected the service provision that we've been able to bring to our citizens. And that's the last thing we want. We want to ensure that we're providing the best services for our community. Now, as far as the budget, when I was the police chief, I was able to effectively reduce our budget by several $1 million by putting together effectiveness and efficiency task forces. And we looked at everything in the police department, from, you know, position assignments, equipment, all the way down to toner for the the printers and electric bills. I mean, we looked at everything, and hands down, the police department was the most efficiently run department in the city. I will look to that. Avoid position cuts as much as possible. Again, cuts into the services. The millage rate, you know, if city council had passed that millage rate that Mayor Buckhorn proposed originally, we hadn't had a millage rate increase in 30 years, we wouldn't be looking at this deficit moving forward. We did get some help with Amendment 1 not being passed. That's going to save us approximately $6 million. And we don't know what we're going to get back on the property tax. I believe that's going to be a lot higher than anticipated. But I will be prepared to propose a budget, a very sound budget that provides the services that our city needs without any draconian cuts and without any tax increases.
Okay, good. Our next question is about permitting. Tampa has been considered a difficult city to go through in terms of permitting process. What will you do for the city to earn a reputation as a safe but permit-friendly process-friendly location?
Yes, and that's a concern that I've heard from the largest developers right down to the small business owners. You know, I've talked to individuals that wanted to open a small business, and they had up to a year delay in the permitting process. Now, you can imagine if you're a small business person, a year delay, you more than likely won't even be able to begin that business. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And I want to have the users of this service to put together a group that can provide some suggestions on how to streamline that. I know that Mayor Buckhorn has really made some progress, but we have so much more to do in the area of permitting. One area that I'm going to look to is that we're going to have someone that owns every single permit. That's an issue that raises its head over and over. You know, if there's not one person that owns a process, then no one does. And so the idea of a permit that has to go through the different departments, it gets held up in one department, then it has to begin the process all over again. We have to stop that. We have to work with developers, small business owners, any citizen that needs a permit. We have got to work with them to ensure that that process is as quick and painless as it can possibly be. And so that will be one of my main priorities. And I'll put that process in place, sort of like a concierge process where someone owns that all the way through.
Good. Okay. Our next question is about home rule. Local governments across the state have been critical of the legislature in recent years. Do you agree that preemption has been a problem in Tallahassee? If yes, how would you work to establish a productive relationship with our legislative delegation?
It's been a big problem. And I can tell you that my first experience with that was I started the firearms unit in the police department. And we wanted to pass some local ordinances dealing with firearms and ammunition, and found out that there were state statutes that prohibited any municipality from passing any ordinance that dealt with those two issues. And it's just continued to build, you know, taking the power away from counties and municipalities. And I will work with all of our legislators and the governor as well to get that power back. You know, the city should be able to determine how they're going to govern and how they're going to pass ordinances that are in the best interest of our citizens. So it has to be a balance, but that pendulum has swung too far in the state's favor, and I'll change that.
Okay. A question on economic development. Utilization of public-private partnerships continue to be an asset for local governments across the country. What opportunities for P3s do you see for the city of Tampa?
The biggest one for me personally is going to be the workforce development. And I've already talked to several developers about this. You know, this is a win-win. If we can, because of the development that is in process now and on the horizon, we need a skilled workforce that we don't currently have. And so I've already met with HCC. I've met with Dr. Akins, Superintendent Akins, about the high schools. And I want to develop a public-private partnership. We have a warehouse in the city out off of Hillsborough around 30th that would be a great location to bring these young kids and young adults in to provide that training and have a workforce available here in our city.
Okay. The next issue, should be surprised, it's been up through the entire process of campaigning, on transportation.
Yes.
We all have lists for transportation projects now that we have the revenue from the sales tax increase. But I want to hear the first and most important transportation investment you would like to see.
The first and most important is our bus service. You know, we went from 96th in funding to 40th overnight. And what that means is we will be able to provide reliable bus service to neighborhoods that have never had it before. If you go back to jobs, there are plenty of jobs in our city that go unfilled because people don't have a way to get to those jobs. And the bus service, I mean, I could go through 100 different issues in transportation, but I think the immediate, most urgent need is to fix our bus system.
Okay. Question on leadership. What is the role of Tampa's mayor? How does that role evolve over the duration of your term?
Well, the role of the mayor of Tampa is to be the leader of our community and the leader for every citizen. I think that's vitally important, that no one feels that they're left out in our community. And my job is to be the promoter, the cheerleader, the negotiator, that leading in times of good times and bad times. That's my job, is to ensure that as a city, we are able to create the kind of city that we all want here in Tampa, that we all want to live, work, and play in, and a city that we'll be proud to pass on to the next generation. And as I have said before, I am the candidate with that leadership experience. You know, I have done it in good times and bad in our community.
Okay. We've touched on several important policies. Before we wrap up, is there a priority you would like to talk about that we haven't discussed, or something you would like to reemphasize?
Well, I'd just like to reemphasize my readiness on day one to become the mayor of Tampa and to continue moving Tampa forward. You know, I understand the issues. I'm an effective problem solver and a proven leader. So I cannot wait to be back in service to our community.
Okay, very good. And where can voters go to learn more about your campaign and your positions on the issues most important to them?
JaneForMayor.com.
JaneForMayor.com. Great. Well, on behalf of the 1,400 members of the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your past service, and thank you for your willingness to serve our community again in the future.
Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody.
Take care. Bye.